Um, hey, 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 how's it going? How you doing? You here to learn about some cannabis news? I heard you were interested in starting a business. Well, one of the things you got to do if you're starting a business is start legitimately. And part of starting legitimate means you have to have your paperwork in order. So, how's it going? How are you? It's October 31st at the current moment. And, I'm currently making a show. If you are a cannabis producer, a processor, or a retailer, you probably want to tune in now because we have tons of good information about what paperwork you need to have filed, as well as what you can do to avoid any speed bumps if you're encountering any delays or hesitations in the approval of your application. So, before we go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of the paperwork and all the legislation that you need to know, let's learn a little bit about the news. Flashy news intro. So on October 28th at George Mason University, Bernie Sanders addressed a college audience and announced his support for the removal of cannabis from the Schedule the removal of cannabis from the Schedule 1 list of drugs.
Right now, marijuana is listed by the federal government as a Schedule 1 drug, meaning that it is considered to be as dangerous as heroin. That is absurd. In my view, the time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Should cannabis be removed from the Schedule 1 list of drugs, this would have deep impacts for those involved with current cannabis marketplace. Effects ranging from banking, taxation, as well as security of mind knowing that you will not be raided by federal agents. Moving cannabis away from the gray markets into full legitimacy will support a billion-dollar industry as well as increase the funding provided by marijuana tax sales. The Illinois medical cannabis industry is expected to start within 2 weeks, approximately November 15th. In 2013, the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Act was first passed, which legalized the use of medical cannabis in Illinois. However, permits were not issued to dispensaries and retailers until February 2nd, 2015. Republican Governor Bruce Rauner has currently approved 5 dispensaries and 17 cultivation centers. Now, those cultivation centers and dispensaries are meant to serve 3,200 permitted medical patients. The state of Washington expects tax revenue from marijuana sales to exceed $1 billion by 2019. In the year of 2015, the Washington state has collected $67.5 million from the sale of cannabis. For the first 3 months of the 2016 fiscal year, Washington State has already collected more than half of last year's sales. They are currently sitting at $37.5 million collected in just 3 months. Now, Washington expects for the growth of cannabis, as well as improved legislation to help expand the sales of cannabis all the way until 2019. Most recently, there's been a change to the way that marijuana has been taxed. By July 1st, 2016, a one-time sales tax of 37% will be issued at the point of sale. Now, this is different from the previous tax code in which 25% of the tax was issued at each step of the production. From production to processing to retailing, one marijuana product could be taxed 25% 3 times. So, that's the news. Now let's go into more details into the meat of today's broadcast, starting an official legitimate business. In the state of Washington, there are currently 3 categories in which the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Control Board will issue licenses for. There are marijuana producers, there are processors, and there are retailers. Now, there are also laboratories which are involved in the industry. Now, these laboratories will take the product and they'll inspect it and specify how much THC and CBD content there is in that product. Now, as far as the accreditation and the official credentials on how these labs get officiated, please refer to the following link below, here or there. So, the application process begins with familiarizing yourself with the Washington Business License application as well as the marijuana addendum form. Get to know these forms, and you can also fill out your application online on the internet. Links will be issued below in the description. The actual costs associated with applying for a licensing fee are $266 for the application for the license, $19 for the business license application fee, and $5 to register your business name as a trade name. All in total, that would cost this much. So, what if you've already sent in your application and you're encountering some delays? What if you're encountering some problems? Or perhaps you're afraid that your license will not pass? Well, these four following criteria are what the Washington State LCB uses to help sort their applications out and give priority to certain applications over others. Let's go over what those criteria are. Criteria A: if you've applied to the State Liquor and Cannabis Board for a marijuana retail license prior to July 1st, 2014. Criteria B: if you operated or were employed by a collective garden before January 1st, 2013. Criteria C: if you have maintained a state business license and a municipal business license in the proposed location. Criteria D: if you have a good standing history of paying all applicable state taxes and fees since July 1st, 2013. So those are the four criteria. If you pass all four criteria, then you are in priority 1. You are first in line for getting your application passed. Second priority is given to those people who can only pass criteria B, C, and D. Now, third priority is given to applicants who have merely completed the marijuana priority verification form. So let's say you submitted your application, and let's say you're waiting around. Perhaps there's a delay, or you're just afraid that your application may not be approved. Well, let's go through the following checklist and make sure that you're all in the clear. So, the first item: are you over 21 years old? This should go without saying. Licensed applicants need to be over the age of 21 in order to submit their application. Item number 2. Have you legally resided in the state of Washington for more than 3 months? It is one point that licensed applicants must have resided legally in the state of Washington for over 3 months before they can have their license approved. Do you intend for the business to be run by a manager? Well, this manager also needs to have all the qualifications that you need to have in order for this application to be approved. That means that this manager needs to be over the age of 21, as well as residing in the state of Washington for over 3 months, as well as the following conditions that we're going to mention later on. If the licensing criteria will apply to you, it must also apply to the manager who you intend to run the business. Let's try this one. Do you have any outstanding child support payments? Well, this is an important fact because if you have any child support payments that are outstanding, then the Washington State LCB has the right to suspend your license, as well as suspend any existing license that has already been approved. Now, the Washington State LCB will restore your license once you've proven that you can comply to those laws. So, has the city manager or county legislative authority found reason to deny your application? When you submit your application, the Washington State Liquor Control Board will notify the city manager or the council legislation of the city you plan to start your business in. This local city manager or legislative authority may deny your application based on chronic illegal activity as defined in the Washington Revised Code of 69.50.331, Section 9. You can find more details in that link here, or somewhere. Now, If you'd like to have more information about the city manager or council member legislation, you can click on the link here. It's a very good site where you can click on the city, click on the county, and determine who exactly are the people that are responsible for this. And it might be a good idea to talk to them beforehand, before your application, to see where they stand on this business. So, one of the reasons that a city manager or council legislation member can deny your application is based on chronic illegal activity. Well, what is chronic illegal activity? Let's go ahead and run down the facts right now. Chronic illegal activity is defined as a pervasive pattern of activity that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare of the city, town, or county. Any open container violations, assaults, disturbances, disorderly conduct, or other criminal law violations. Any other documented crime statistics, police reports, emergency medical response data, or calls for service based on the business. Or if there is an unreasonably high number of citations for violations of driving under the influence. These are all indications and evidence that the city manager may use to deny your application. And another one, this is a very important one. Is your proposed location for your business within 1,000 feet of an elementary or secondary school, of a playground, a recreation center, a child care center, a public park, or a public transit center, as well as an arcade? Well, if it is within 1,000 feet of the perimeter, then your application will be denied. Your location of the business has to be outside of this area. Licenses will not be granted for any violations of this rule. So, these are the various reasons which your application may be denied, but if you feel that your application was erroneously denied, well, you do have a course of action you can take. Per the revised Code of Washington 69.50.334, you can apply for a hearing. Now, in this hearing, you can state your case for legitimacy and prove compliance with all the necessary criteria. So this is your chance, and you do have your time in court to prove that you are legitimate and you are willing to play by the rules and start your business legitimately. And links to all of the information here is available publicly online and on the internet, and the links will be provided in the description below. Hopefully, this information can help you start your business as well as start you off on the right foot. There's a lot of legislation and there's a lot of changes going on right now, and I only hope to help explain this and help sort these out and make things a little bit easier for a business owner like you. Well, that's it for me, the Dabbing Diaries channel. I am Phil, aka the Cangineer, Cannabis Engineer. I hope that you guys have a good night. Arrivederci, happy Halloween, and cheers.